The National Parks Board will resume crow shooting operations from the second half of March. This will be the first time it's doing so since the practice was stopped in 2020, following incidents of shotgun pellets striking nearby residences due to human error.
These crows are a common sight in Singapore, and over the past 5 years, they've been growing in numbers and causing more problems. Last year, NParks received about 15,000 crow-related feedback, 3 times more than in 2020. Within the same period, crow-related attacks grew fourfold to more than 2,000 cases last year. National Development Minister Chee Hong Tat says that the current measures to control crow population, including trapping, are not enough.
If the crow population continues to grow, it will affect the safety of our residents as there will be more and more crow-related attacks. We should not wait for this to happen before we take action. I've therefore asked NParks to bring back crow shooting as one of the measures to reduce the crow population in Singapore.
He adds that the operations do carry some risk, as shotguns will be used.
We will carefully manage the risks with enhanced safety measures. Shooters will go through training and are required to adhere to strict safety controls.
NParks says licensed wildlife management contractors trained in firearms handling will only fire upwards. It adds that the area will be secured with clear signage, with personnel to prevent unauthorized access. Operations will also be rolled out progressively to allow authorities to refine them before scaling up. One animal welfare group says that one risk is whether shooters would be able to identify the birds correctly. He adds that people feeding wild animals also needs to be addressed better.
A lot more awareness and education is needed on the ground to really tell people why they shouldn't be feeding wild animals. And it's about time that we start looking at technology and find more ways. So I know that NParks have looked into effigies and different ways, like the bird effigies, by hanging them to deter crows.
He adds that Singapore can look to other countries like Japan, which has effectively managed to involve the community in solving a similar problem.
One bird management firm says it has been receiving 15 crow complaints every day for the past 3 years. This is more than 5 times the number of calls previously. Alxis Thng with this report.
This is a sound residents in this Ang Mo Kio estate are used to. The crows are so common, those living here have learned to tune them out. But they are not happy with the situation and believe that feeders are continuing to attract the birds.
但是那些人会很奇怪，他又怕抓，所以他久久放一个在窗口，造成那个乌鸦一直在这边。
They are on the trees, and then each time human traffic, they drop their droppings, and then you find all over the places a lot of dropping also. I think it also dirty the place and environment, and users is not user friendly anymore.
Residents I spoke to say they have been attacked before by crows. They have spoken to the authorities about it, but the problem continues. It's not for a lack of measures. This bird management firm uses bird traps to capture crows in a humane manner. It's one of the options open to it after shooting crows was banned in 2020. They have such operations island-wide, including in Toa Payoh, Tampines and Sentosa. But it says the method can become less effective over time.
Crows are generally very intelligent, so they get habituated. They know that this is actually a crow trap. So over some time, the catch rate will decrease. They habituate, and we have problem catching them.
That's why in the long term, she says their management relies heavily on community awareness. She adds her firm also educates the public to manage food waste properly, as such waste attracts birds, including crows. They also advise residents not to feed the birds, which is against the law.
And for more, I'm joined by Kalaivanan Balakrishnan, who is the Chief Executive Officer of ACRES, an animal protection group. Kali, welcome to the show.
Good evening.
Now let's start with what we've always heard, which is that crows are highly intelligent creatures. Can you tell us just how smart they are and how should this affect the way we deal with them?
I mean, at Acres, we rescue animals all the time, and I must say crows are indeed very smart. I think from a research point of view, it is said that they have the cognitive abilities of a young child, like a 7-year-old, and just comparable to some primates even. So they are pretty smart. Every species of animals out there have different behavior and their own challenges on how they can be managed. So how we manage them will also have to be different.
Well, based on all the available data, and then also considering the rise in the number of complaints about crow attacks, how effective do you think this measure of bringing back crow culling by shooting, how effective do you think that will be in solving the problem?
I think that there is no denying that some animal populations need to be managed, in this case crows. But what the issue here is, what measure, are we going to do shooting again? It seems like we are going back like 50 years to a very ancient method of shooting. So I think that will be the crux of the issue, and how well have we explored other measures yet to be seen.
We'll talk a bit about these other measures in just a while. But if we look at considering the crow population, if it's not effectively managed, do you think there might be risks to other biodiversity in Singapore? Could we also risk other bird species being affected as well? What are your thoughts on that?
I think if the crow population continues to grow, there is a chance that it can affect other wildlife. There's no denying it, because they could be nesting in urban areas. They can be predatory in nature, so it can happen. So that is why we need to control the population, but we need to do it humanely, because the point is, at the end of the day, they are sentient beings, just like any other animal. We don't want to go down this dark road where we start differentiating different species, where one has a bigger value than the other. I feel like that has a lot more implications down the road for society.
And another consideration as well would be the safety concerns that have been raised as well. In 2020, when there was a halt, it was because some of the shotgun pellets might have been in the vicinity of residential homes. So do you think the new proposed enhanced safety measures are sufficient when it comes to addressing these original safety concerns? Is anything different now, you think?
I think it remains to be seen exactly how they plan to do this. But the risks are still there, where bullets can go astray. The risks are still there where other wild birds can be shot. Or also, if the other wild birds or protected species are nesting, they can be chased away as well. But I think the biggest problem is, from what I see, is that if you're doing this in a town, what are the optics? What are we trying to tell our younger generation? When a child comes down and sees birds getting shot, crows, the children are not going to think that crows are getting shot down. They're going to think that birds are getting shot down. And how will that impact what the younger generation think of nature or animals down the road? That is the big concern that we have.
I want to get your view then on what you were mentioning earlier, which is that there are other ways and other measures that can also be considered alongside what is being recommended, which could be as well what we as residents in Singapore and different areas can do on our part. What would you say some of those measures or changes might be?
I think that NParks has done a relatively good job trying to do a multi-pronged approach. But in 2025, I understand that 13,000 crows were culled. That's a large number. So given that large number of 13,000 crows that were culled, then I guess then the question is, how come the issue is still so big that now we need to resort to shooting? And I think that highlights that shooting alone or culling the animals, it's not a good solution. We have been doing that for pigeons also for decades, and it doesn't work. So we'll keep repeating it. So while on hindsight, there are other measures that were explored, like food waste management and all that, how intensely were they done? Were these other measures proportionally explored to how culling happened? So I guess that's the question I have. There's no data on that. And I think at the end of the day in Singapore, whether it's crows or any other animal, how we manage them cannot be just like NParks to do. We need to get the community involved. I need to get the other stakeholders. I think it's still lacking. Right now, if you go to the coffee shops here, there's so much food availability for pigeons and crows, and the population will also increase. And to further add, if I can, I think Now with AI and other technologies, there are technologies available, where they can detect animals. There is literally gold there yet to be discovered on how we can deter nesting, because a lot of these attacks are usually defensive behaviors by the crows when they're nesting, especially in the heartlands where some of the trees are lower, so the nests are in a lower area. So if you can find new ways to deter them from nesting or identify nesting spots and remove them more quickly, I believe that NParks has been doing that, but I think more effort can be done to do it more intensely. I think we'll get better results.
Yeah, now very quickly before we go, Kalai, if you were to give a quick tip for our viewers who are thinking, what can I do on my part on a day-to-day basis to prevent this issue from ballooning, what would you say?
I think if you have food waste, remember to dispose it properly. This is a very big issue, not just for crows, but many other animals as well. And if you see your neighbor or someone in your estate feeding birds, please go and talk to them or report them. I think feeding is another big problem, and not enough is done to enforce as well to deter feeders. Yeah, and at coffee shops and all that, I think the community at large can come together and play a bigger part in ensuring that, especially in coffee shops and other eating places, more is done to clear the food completely as well.
Kalai, thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us. I've been speaking with Kalaivanan, who is CEO of Acres.